Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the JDRF MinnDakotas Research Progress Summit. My name is Jackie Casey, and I'm the Executive Director of the MinnDakotas chapter. I'll be moderating tonight's event. Our chapter is made up of the efforts happening in 3 states, Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. We're so fortunate to have really strong partnerships with many local companies, and tonight we're getting to showcase 2 of those partnerships with the companies that are hosting us for tonight's event. They've really stepped up to the plate to allow us to be one big happy family, which isn't really easy in such a large geography. With the support of Medtronic, where we are here in Minnesota, and Sanford Health, where a number of people are joining us in South Dakota, we're able to link together. And I want you to join me in thanking our 2 hosts for tonight's event, Medtronic and Sanford Health. Thank you. We're so thrilled to see so many of you here. We were overwhelmed by the response that we got to this event. As you've noticed, we're full in here. More people are coming, and we have overflow area. And I know that they're full in South Dakota as well. We love to do this meeting. It allows us to share the tremendous progress that JDRF-funded research is making to find a cure for type 1 diabetes and to improve the lives of those who are living with it. We also really enjoy the chance to personally thank you, each and every one of you, for all that you do to make our fundraising efforts a success. Without those efforts, really none of the research could happen. You are driving the progress to a cure. It's really all about you. And I think it would be safe to say that we probably can't thank you enough. And we will spend time all night trying to do that and make sure that you know how important you are. Scott Anderson is currently serving as the JDRF MinnDakotas chapter president. As the dad of Max, who has type 1 diabetes, he is personally invested in JDRF's mission. He is steeped in our events and programs and is really excited to share our success with you. Please join me in welcoming Scott Anderson. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Jackie. So tonight, welcome. I get to actually start out the program and give you a lot of the good news around some of our fundraising and some of the events that we've done. So tonight, we're going to have an exciting program planned for you. We have lined up some of our chapter leadership to really tell you about the JDRF expanded vision, about our chapter programs, about the dollars that we're driving towards that vision, and give you an overview of our research portfolio and our objectives. Then from experts, you're going to hear about a deeper dive into Regeneration, a part of the JDRF Cure portfolio. And you're also going to hear about the artificial pancreas and glucose-responsive insulin, 2 elements of our Treat portfolio. Tonight is our chance also to thank you, as Jackie was saying, for all you do and show you exactly how we're putting your contributions of time, money, and talent to work. So I'm going to talk to you about, give a drive towards our attention to our new JDRF expanded vision. Our vision for the future of all those with type 1 diabetes, or T1D, as we refer to it, is simple. We want to drive research in ways that make the disease itself less evasive on the bodies and their lives, less complex to manage our diabetes, and then finally lessens the fear of life-altering and life-threatening complications. Moving forward, JDRF is about less until there is none. So, JDRF is evolving and expanding its vision as well. First of all, you'll note that we are no longer the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. We are JDRF. Improving lives and curing type 1 diabetes. You'll note that our new logo, seen at the bottom of the screen, is actually a representation of that. And you will notice that actually, and I'll demonstrate for those in the room, if you look at the logo, you're going to see a T, a 1, and a D within the JDRF logo itself. So again, focusing on type 1 within the logo of JDRF. We have been curing diabetes for about 40 years. And we're going to use that 40 years of building and knowledge about diabetes and increasing improvements in people's lives and ultimately cure and prevent the disease. When we began, we were singularly focused on children, focused on funding research, and focused on the early stages of research. Today, we know that 85% of the people with type 1 diabetes are actually adults. And 50% of the people diagnosed with diabetes each year are also adults. We can be stronger as an organization if we focus our efforts on everyone who has type 1 diabetes at all stages of the disease, whether newly diagnosed, established diabetes, or confronting complications from diabetes. We will be stronger when we focus on those who care about these people. We need all those touched by the disease to be part of the JDRF family. The opportunity in front of us is to rapidly accelerate the research towards a cure and to play an essential role in delivering therapies that help people living with T1D. We realize we cannot focus solely on a cure. We need to keep people healthy and safe while working towards a cure. I'm going to paraphrase our CEO, Jeffrey Brewer, who has a son with type 1 diabetes as well. He puts it like this: don't make me choose between a cure for my son and the health of my son. Don't make me choose between a cure for my son or prevention for my other children. I believe we have the will, the science, and the fundraising capability to actually do all three. During the Q&A session between our first research speaker, Jackie and I will be happy to take any questions you might have about the new direction and the new brand that we have out today. All right, let me talk about the success that we've had around our fundraising, kind of switch gears. JDRF MinnDakotas' success is founded upon a strong staff and volunteer partnership. Each chapter program has a volunteer leader and a staff partner. Most importantly, each program success is 100% dependent on you. The people at JDRF drive our vision. You should see each of the staff as your partner in helping you connect with some of the JDR events and programs. It takes many kinds of people to achieve the JDRF vision, from donors and volunteers to researchers and corporate partners. We all have a part to play. Tonight we are joined by representatives from all of these groups, and again, we want to thank you deeply for all that you do. Tonight you have the opportunity to elect a board of directors. You should have each received a ballot with biographies for each of the new members that are trying to get on the board. In Minnesota, we'll vote for the JDRF MinnDakotas board, and in South Dakota, you guys will be voting for the JDRF South Dakota board. When you have completed your ballots, if you haven't already, please place them in the baskets in the back of the room. So let's talk about the success in the past year raising money. JDRF ways of raising money are diverse, with a focus on events and major gifts. JDRF tonight, we're focused on the net dollars made available to research by our chapter. These are fundraising results after expenses. This year we netted, as you can see in the previous screen, over $2,750,000. That is a 33% increase over 5 years ago. We've been growing. We know there's more opportunity. You can help us take advantage of this opportunity. The Walk to Cure Diabetes program in our chapter had a record-breaking year in many ways. Remember, these are net numbers. In other words, these dollars are going directly to research to help fund prevention and cure. In South Dakota, everyone there and teams like Cassandra's Crusaders, shown here in the picture, have raised $280,000, an astounding 24% increase over the last year. At the Mall of America, the largest single walk site in both numbers of people and in dollars raised. This was the first year we actually eclipsed the $2 million mark. Amazing 16% increase over last year. And we had another walk, the Roll and Stroll in Rochester, Minnesota. You helped raise $79,000, and that's a 31% increase over last year. That's tremendous involvement from all of you in our walk programs. Let's hear it for the walks. And for these chapter walks, this is the power of what staff and volunteer partnership can bring. With small staff resource and support, you drive that kind of fundraising. These walks have what we consider around a 95% efficiency ratio. That means that 95% of those funds are given right into research. It's also the power of the partnerships between Affected with Diabetes and the extraordinary corporate partners. Companies raise or give about half of those dollars, and peoples and families affected by diabetes, schools and civic organization give the other half. It is a great message to our corporate partners that we just don't have our hands out. We rolled up our sleeves, and we couldn't say this without all of your unprecedented commitment to these walks. We look forward to your participation in one of the 3 walk events starting in January of 2013. The theme for next year, make every step count. Another fundraiser for us is our Imagination Ball. Imagination Ball netted a research an impressive $507,000, which is a 50% increase over 5 years ago. We are pleased to announce the return at a new time of the year of the Sugar Ball, a family-friendly gala in Fargo. And finally, a Ride to Cure Diabetes is our last core fundraising event. It has netted $120,000 last year, which is a 305% increase over the prior year. So, as you can see, we've done a lot over the last year around fundraising, again, with the help of you. So thank you again for all of your participation and all the work you've done to bring in corporate partners, to bring in your family dollars, and most importantly, to engage in an event with people with a common goal. This concludes a recap of a lot of our core fundraising event programs. We're now going to turn our attention to some of our other important programs. I would like to introduce Rob McCoy, who is the president of the JDRF South Dakota. As we mentioned earlier, we are live linked with our friends in JDRF in South Dakota. Like me, Rob's passion for JDRF's mission is a result of a personal connection. He too has a son with type 1 diabetes. Rob will be speaking to you about the JDRF Government Relations Program. Please help me in welcoming Rob. Take it away, Rob.
Thanks, Scott. Welcome, everybody. As Scott said, I'm the volunteer president of the JDRF in South Dakota. I had the privilege of recently attending the JDRF National Annual Conference in Washington, D.C., where we visited all of our legislators on the Hill, 16 in 3 states in 1 day. In a moment, I'll tell you what our message that day was, as we will be enlisting you shortly and lending your voice to our message. I have been participating in the Government Relations Program for many years, attending Promise to Remember Me meetings, and now visiting Capitol Hill twice as a JDRF volunteer. I continue to be impressed by the power we volunteers can have on increasing dollars spent by the government on diabetes research and on improving policies that support research and removing barriers to research progress. The JDRF Government Relations Program is indeed powerful, and it is extraordinarily important to the accomplishment of our mission. I'll illustrate that with a story. Last year, it became critically important for the FDA to reduce some barriers that were preventing the artificial pancreas from its path to the marketplace. In essence, without regulatory guidance from the FDA, we were being prevented from doing artificial pancreas studies outside of the clinic. This was becoming like curing diabetes in a mouse. Done that a million times. Maybe not a million. Curing diabetes in a mouse using a treatment that can't be applied to people is nothing to be overjoyed about. An artificial pancreas that only works in a clinical setting is equally nothing to shout from the rooftops. Through Children's Congress, where kids deliver the message, the Promise to Remember Me campaign, where you deliver the message here at home, and through an advocacy campaign where you ask your legislators to sign a petition, JDRF was able to convince the FDA to release the guidelines for the artificial pancreas, thus creating a reasonable pathway for research and development progress on this important life-improving and life-saving device. If you attended a promise meeting, or if you called, wrote, or emailed your legislator, you made this happen. Your voice is powerful. But at JDRF, there is no resting on our laurels. We need your voice again. The Special Diabetes Program for T1D, we call it the SDP, is a unique federal research program dedicated to T1D research. Since its inception in 1997, the SDP has been reauthorized 6 times and has funded nearly $1.9 billion in diabetes research. The most recent reauthorization occurred in December of 2010, securing $150 million in federal funding per year for the National Institutes of Health through 2013. This research funding has a companion package of $150 million for prevention and treatment of diabetes in the American Indian community. Thousands of those dollars are then allocated in the form of research grants and program grants to science and tribal communities right here in Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. SDP reauthorization is JDRF's top legislative priority in 2012, and it is essential to the continuation of groundbreaking research to cure, treat, and prevent T1D. Huge advancements have been made in research as a result of over 10 years of this special funding. The collaborators on a cure and improved lines ensuring maximized dollars to research. When we work to pass the SDP and ask you to work with us, we are working on our mission. JDRF's dollars, even when added with other private philanthropy, cannot possibly provide the needed level of funding to bring advances to the marketplace. The government, along with the industry, are 2 of our 4 greatest partners in achieving our mission. But to that point, we can't do it, and we don't do it with our hands out. We really are partners. With your efforts and contributions, JDRF is able to say to our legislators that we are working hard to put large dollars towards this problem as well, over $100 million per year. If you would like to learn more about the specific advances from this funding, you can visit our website at jdrf.org, click on the Advocacy tab, and then on Key Initiatives. In a political and economic climate where legislators are looking for ways to cut funds, we will need everyone who cares about diabetes to step up. You have heard how powerful your voice can be. Now it is more important than ever. Failure to pass the bill in the legislative session this coming fall will mean a 35% decrease in funding. It'll mean halting of important clinical trials and abandonment of important research on the cusp of breakthroughs. In the fall, the SDP will become part of a bill. JDRF will be contacting you via emails called advocacy alerts with specific instructions about what to do. Mostly that's contacting your legislators, telling them that you want to support the bill. But we want to give you a heads up. The legislative process moves quickly, and we want to make sure that the SDP is part of a bill that can actually pass. So it may actually be part of several bills throughout the process, meaning that you might get multiple action alerts. Each time the SDP becomes part of a new bill, it will be important for you to respond to each one. Your voice matters, and only with your voices will this pass. You will only get these alerts if you sign up to be an advocate. You can do that here tonight. We've got a couple people here in the crowd that are signing up advocates. Find them. They'll be sticking around after the meeting. Let them know who you are. Tonight is all about getting you excited about JDRF's work, your work with us. Later, you will be inspired by the research progress. You've just seen how much of an impact you have on fundraising success, the money that drives the research, and how you can lend your voice to our advocacy goals. We need you now more than ever to drive our ever more aggressive agenda of improving lives and curing type 1 diabetes. There are many ways you can help. When you become part of an event and raise money, you drive the mission. The work you do to ask others to make a gift is so important. You are our best and most effective fundraisers. Your story, coupled with the JDRF's effective use of donor dollars and research progress, compels others to give. Your participation in our fundraising events is the core of our fundraising success. There is an event for everyone. We're very proud of our successful and growing fundraising programs here at our chapter. However, as president and volunteer leader of fundraising, I would be remiss not to mention that participating in an event is just one way to support diabetes research efforts. You can donate to JDRF without walking, dancing, riding, skydiving, skiing, or running. You can just donate. Each year, donors from across the country make gifts to JDRF, large and small. Whether you make $1 million gift or a $10 gift, you can be assured that your contribution will be put to good use and you will drive the JDRF mission. JDRF also has a growing planned gift program called the Beta Society. Some people are able to make their largest contribution to JDRF through a legacy gift. These gifts are important as they provide a pipeline for future dollars we'll be able to use to support research. Until the end of this calendar year, we have a very unique opportunity to take your legacy gift and turn it into cash now. You all received information about this program when you registered. Don't hesitate to reach out to us with questions. Your volunteer time is also invaluable. Whether you're a part of the board, committee, come to the office to make calls or stuff envelopes, or volunteer at an event, your time and talents make it possible for us to accomplish our goal for so much less money. You make us more efficient. Your time and dedication allows us to use more donor dollars for research. JDRF is always looking for volunteer leaders. If you have a talent you would like to share, please reach out. You can visit the JDRF MinnDakotas website for a list of the committees you can become involved with. Your participation in a clinical research study could contribute to a major breakthrough in improving lives and curing diabetes. You can also get information about these ways to be involved by visiting the JDRF chapter website, www.jdrf.org/MinnDakotas. I think one of the most powerful things I witness at JDRF each day, especially in my role as a volunteer leader, is the immense passion and commitment demonstrated each day by our donors and volunteers. The numbers and successes speak for themselves. Thank you all for that you have done and for all that you will do. You drive our success. You ensure the accomplishment of our mission. Thanks, and now I'll kick it back to Minneapolis and Jackie.
Thanks, Rob. You know, the research is awfully amazing, but this technology stuff just impresses me so much. I love that we can be connected with our friends in South Dakota, and they can be connected with us. JDRF really is a volunteer-driven organization, and quite simply, we couldn't achieve the successes that we do without each and every one of you. Tonight, however, there is one extraordinary volunteer that we'd like to acknowledge for her tremendous contributions. The Inspirational Leadership Award is presented to someone who exemplifies the spirit and hope of progress at JDRF, who has dedicated a significant amount of time and talent to our work, who not only leads, but inspires others to become part of our mission. The person we're honoring tonight has been an invaluable member of our chapter for many years. She is retiring from her 6th year on our board of directors and has been serving as the outreach chairperson since the inception of the formalized program 5 years ago, and she's going to continue to do that. Prior to that, she dedicated 5 years of service to the government relations team. She is currently a member of our National Online Diabetes Support Team, answering questions of families and adults living with type 1 diabetes from throughout the country. And she's also a resource for a number of our families on school-related issues. Most recently, she accepted the role of the Regional Outreach Chair, providing support to other volunteer outreach chairs in each of 11 chapters in her region. The bottom line is that she's helped literally hundreds, if not thousands, of families seeking support and resources, and her great work continues to grow exponentially with her inspirational leadership. Please join me in congratulating Janie Ray Wern on receiving the Inspirational Leadership Award, and she's also going to share some information about our outreach program. I couldn't do it without crying. Oh. I should also mention that she's absolutely one of my favorite people to drive all over our chapter geography in the car. I can go from here to Minot, North Dakota, and honestly, it's a 9-hour drive. I feel like I do it in 5 minutes because she tells me wonderful stories. So there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. They asked if I would do the presentation for outreach, and I said, yep, if you make it really brief and don't make me cry, but that's been unsuccessful. Well, okay, no, I'm technically challenged. Is someone running this for me? Green goes forward, I guess, right? I can handle that. All right. It's been very, very exciting for the past 5 years to follow this journey of the outreach program development. I left the government relations and joined the outreach team, and it was the perfect fit for me. I just loved it. It was a great thing, and so it's been really, really fun for me to watch how that's grown and all of the volunteers that have stepped forward to make this happen. So I just want to say thank you to all the volunteers, and he wasn't kidding when he mentioned how many ways you can possibly volunteer in this organization. I did online diabetes support, and I can do that in my pajamas at home. So there's no reason you can't volunteer a few minutes, I'll tell you. It's been very, very rewarding. Most of the people that I deal with are walking in our shoes. They have a child who was just recently diagnosed. They don't know what to do. We have mentors that are willing to help. We have family network leaders that are willing to help. We all walk in those shoes. We all understand what it's like, and we have a passion to drive these programs and be reaching out to those who are newly diagnosed or those who are having issues from several years ago, and so, or that they've been living with diabetes for several years and are having different issues. But we all have an ultimate goal, and that is that nobody has to deal with this disease ever again. So that's our mission. In the process, we know that everyone's going to need a little help from somebody else who's been there and dealt with those situations. Maybe it's a new diagnosis and you have your first child sleep over and you don't sleep and apparently they do, and you need to know what you're going to do. How do you send them to a birthday party the first time with cake and ice cream and you can't breathe because you think they're not going to be able to come home? Or maybe you're an adult who's lived with this for years and now you're dealing with a pregnancy and you need to talk to another woman who's been through that. That's what our mentors are here for. The family network teams are here for. That's our goal, is to make sure that we can provide support for all ages and for all stages of life with T1D. So tonight I want to let you know what some of the things are that we have available to you. We have over 20 family network groups. These are volunteer run in Minnesota and North Dakota. South Dakota, I haven't left you out. We'll get there. They're all parent experience, camaraderie. We share tips, we have fun, we laugh, we cry. Imagine that. And they're listed on our website. You can find one close to you. And if not, please contact the office. We're always looking for additional. I had someone approach me tonight about starting a new group. So let us know if there's other areas that you'd like to see a family network group. In South Dakota, there's a new family network group that's in the works. And we also have a type 1 diabetes adult group that is in the works in South Dakota. In Minnesota, we currently have 2 groups for adults with type 1. We have one that's topic-oriented meetings. They meet periodically, I think it's the 3rd Thursday of the month, and share the topics. If you're interested, you can come. If you want to visit with people, you can do that as well. We also have a young leadership team that just got started. They hosted a great event just recently for the Kentucky Derby, and they had a Derby for a Cure event. And now they've got a new event planned for fall, the kickoff for a Cure, which will be the NFL season opener. So they have a lot of fun, and they meet at other times as well. We also have great information through our monthly newsletters. We have one specifically for families of children with type 1. We also have a newsletter for adults with type 1. If you're not receiving any of that information, please feel free to contact us. We'd love to get you connected. And coming up in November, we have our annual Reach and Teach. It's on November 17th this year. And we have sessions for adults, for parents, for grandparents, education and motivation sessions tailored just for what you would like to choose to attend. So there's multiple options at that event. We'll have a lot more information going out in emails, on the newsletter, and on the website as that approaches. We also have our mentor program, which I briefly touched on. We have mentors for both adults and for families with children with type 1. They are North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. They can tailor make it to the age of your child or to the situation you're dealing with as an adult. So just let us know and we can connect you to another volunteer mentor. We also have a group for type 1s that are newly diagnosed. We're seeing more and more that this is not juvenile diabetes anymore. It's type 1 diabetes. And there's a lot of adults that are newly diagnosed and need somebody to just kind of talk through some of the issues that they're facing. But most importantly, all of our volunteer outreach team members have an infectious hope that we will find a cure for diabetes. So whatever the stage you're in, know that you are not alone, that there is somebody here to help you. With that, I would like to introduce Barb. Barb's been a fellow board member with me, and she's also retiring today. She is going to be presenting research information, and she's also a member of one of our mentor teams. So we would like you to come up and help me welcome her in research strategy and goals.
Good evening. My name is Barb White. I am the mom of a child with type 1 diabetes. My son Simon was diagnosed when he was 3.5. He is now 8, and I will be leaving after my presentation to watch him play in his championship Little League baseball game. So proof that life goes on and we do all kinds of things, even with diabetes on board. So I'd like to begin by saying that this is an exciting time for research on type 1 diabetes. JDRF is the global leader in type 1 diabetes research, and we've made tangible progress over the last year on all 3 of our research priorities. Included with your handouts is a list of some of the top 10 researches that have been completed or are underway this year, and those are under each of the categories, which I'll discuss in a minute. And we continue to aggressively pursue multiple research programs with your support. Our leadership in type 1 diabetes research is notable. We're the largest nonprofit funder of diabetes research with over $100 million put toward research last year and over $1.5 billion over the last 40 years. In fiscal year 2012, we funded researchers in 19 different countries with nearly 40 human clinical trials. Human clinical trials are particularly important because those are the trials that help us to get closer to the last steps to bring products to market for drugs and devices in particular, and also to see the impacts of those treatments and potential cures. And those human studies are performed on patients with type 1 diabetes as well as those with risk of type 1 diabetes. And in some instances, there are opportunities, even if you're not the person with diabetes, to participate as a control person to compare. So don't think that if you don't have diabetes, you're not eligible to participate. And the research is occurring at over 100 locations around the world. And as mentioned earlier, JDRF is a very efficient organization. So overall, over 80% of the net contributions go directly to support research and research-related education. And as you've heard, here in Minnesota, South Dakota, and North Dakota, some of our programs are even more efficient than that benchmark. So it's very exciting. There are 3 prongs to our research strategy: to cure diabetes, to better treat diabetes for those who already have it, and to prevent the development of type 1 diabetes by accelerating the discovery, development, and delivery of therapeutic drugs and devices. The research goals are patient-focused. The cure goal is to the cure goal is to remove the disease from the lives of our loved ones. I mentioned my son Simon, and you've probably heard other people say this, but we look forward to the day when we can say that he had diabetes. Treatment is developing a better way to live your life of type 1 diabetes. Those include all kinds of things, including the Artificial Pancreas Project that you'll hear about more tonight, and glucose-responsive insulin. And then prevention. Through prevention, it would be possible to eradicate type 1 diabetes going forward and to target susceptible populations as well as stopping the progression of the disease. Some examples of the types of things that are occurring under each of these prongs. Primary prevention is focused on vaccines, and secondary prevention is focused on diagnosing and staging, following the recognition that the person is susceptible to diabetes, and that includes antigen-specific immune therapies and beta cell therapies, protecting the beta cells in the pancreas that produce insulin from attack. Treatment includes glucose control, something that I'm guessing everyone in this room has given thought to, beta cell survival and glucose control through drugs and sensors, and then also the treatment of complications, and that also includes better therapies for life events for things like pregnancy, and then cure, which includes antigen-specific immune therapy, beta cell regeneration, so finding those surviving beta cells and getting them to go back to doing their job of producing insulin, and encapsulated alternative beta cell sources. That would mean inserting beta cells that are protected from attack so that they could act as the producers of insulin in the bodies of persons with type 1 diabetes. I'm going to go over some of the priorities, and there's a lot of scientific words here, but I think the explanations on the sheet that you received help break that down. And there's also a lot of information on the JDRF website. So if a particular topic strikes your interest, a particular research topic, feel free to go to the jdrf.org website and read more about it. So for the cure priorities for funding for 2012 are antigen-specific vaccines, beta cell regeneration and health, again focusing on getting those beta cells to go back to doing their jobs, encapsulation technology for beta cell replacement, protecting inserted beta cells from attack, biomarkers for autoimmune and beta cell status, understanding the progression of the disease, and natural history and heterogeneity of human type 1 diabetes. What are the markers for diabetes? How does it develop? Things of that nature. The treatment priorities for 2012, you're going to hear a lot about tonight, and in much more detail than I can offer. I'm not a doctor, and I don't play one on TV. So those include the next generation closed-loop artificial pancreas, and that's one of the topics for tonight. That includes not only the pump itself, but sensors that would measure glucose levels, as well as glucagon as a hormone that counteracts, or doesn't really counteract, but reacts to the body when the blood sugar is too low, and how that could be incorporated as part of a pump system. Glucose-responsive insulin, which you'll hear more about. Glucose-modulating drugs. Some of those drugs may be related to current type 2 therapies, and they're interested in figuring out how that might apply to type 1. Diabetic eye disease, preventing complications, and then, as I mentioned, pregnancy, so one of those life stage opportunities. The prevention rationale focuses on a cure as for those at risk. So as I said, it would be possible eventually to eradicate type 1 diabetes if you could prevent the disease. And it's also one of the more affordable potential cures because you don't incur all of the expenses for care and treatment that would occur if the person actually developed type 1. We also know that there's an increasing incidence and an earlier age of onset and a lower threshold of susceptibility. So more and more people, including children, are contracting type 1 diabetes. There's been a lot of research progress on this, and in particular looking at those vaccines and those antigen-specific therapies. And the goal is to prevent insulin dependence. One of the ways to prevent it is to identify parties who are at risk, persons who are at risk, and prevent, delay, or reverse the progress of the disease. And we know that you are at higher risk if you are a sibling of someone with type 1, a parent of someone with type 1, or a first-degree relative of someone with type 1. And TrialNet was here tonight. JDRF is a co-sponsor of TrialNet, and that's a group that works on identifying persons who may be at risk and tracking that, and then that leads to additional research. The goal of prevention is to prevent the development of type 1 in high-risk groups. And I mentioned earlier the vaccine program. The idea behind a vaccine is that we treat lots of other diseases by preventing you from getting them. And we believe that it would be possible to prevent that autoimmune attack on the pancreas, and that it may be possible to use a vaccine to do that. And then the immune therapy program, which is intended to stop the attack on the pancreas once that process is underway. So the priorities for funding for this year for prevention are vaccines, microbiome, natural history, which is again that connection with TrialNet and the studies that are associated with TrialNet, biomarkers, understanding how you can recognize a person with the potential to develop type 1 diabetes, and then watch for that and hopefully intervene earlier before that attack moves beyond the point where it can be prevented. And then the specific human trials related to prevention. Our keynote speaker this evening is Dr. Marlon Pragnell, and he is the Senior Scientific Program Manager in the Treatment Therapies Program at JDRF. So he's actually a scientist for JDRF, which I think among scientists must be a very cool job. He manages JDRF's multi-million-dollar artificial pancreas project, which brings together world-class diabetes clinicians with engineers and mathematicians to develop and test novel artificial pancreas control algorithms. He will talk about that, but that's one of the areas that interests me in particular is understanding well, I won't understand it, but knowing that someone understands the math that will allow these pumps to work better and better and to interact better and better. Dr. Pragnell also leads JDRF efforts in the area of hypoglycemia research, which aims to understand the mechanisms of hypoglycemia unawareness. Those are folks who don't realize until much later that they're having low blood sugar, in order to find better treatments for this condition. Obviously, that can be very dangerous and very disruptive. Tonight, he'll be speaking specifically about JDRF's exciting work on both the Artificial Pancreas Project and glucose-responsive insulin. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Marlon Pragnell.
Well, thank you very much. It's really a great honor to be able to come and talk to you this evening about the artificial pancreas and give you an update on all the exciting work that's going on in that space. So Barb gave a really great overview of all the various emphasis areas within JDRF. So as she mentioned, we're focused on the cure portfolio, the treat portfolio, and the prevent portfolio. Again, the cure portfolio focusing on areas, for example, regeneration of beta cells, encapsulation of beta cell sources, immune therapies, all strategies towards the cure. On the other side, we have prevent. And this is especially relevant in terms of the recent data we saw with the increased incidence of type 1 diabetes here in the States. And again, the focus there is on preventing the autoimmune process from ever starting and stopping and reversing the autoimmune process early to maintain insulin independence. What I want to focus on here, though, is the treat portfolio, the treat effort. And the goal here, then, is to maintain tight glucose control to prevent complications, future complications, and also to research to actually prevent complications from occurring and treating those complications. So the artificial pancreas, what is it? Well, JDRF's vision of an artificial pancreas is our insulin pump, continuous glucose monitor. Again, a future version will have a much better form factor. But the idea here is that instead of a person actually doing, looking at their sensor, delivering insulin via the pump, you want to take the individual out of the whole process. All that challenge of maintaining your blood glucose day in, day out, we want to kind of have the pump and sensor talk to each other to create a closed loop. So what are we doing towards this? What are JDRF's key artificial pancreas activities? Well, we're funding a lot of research So we're developing the algorithms to automatically dose insulin at the right time and the right amount when it's needed. But also, too, we're seeding the development of more accurate glucose sensors and faster acting insulin. This is absolutely critical to move to the next stages in the artificial pancreas project. We're funding clinical trials, a lot of in-clinical testing of these algorithms, but also, too, we're doing some outpatient studies, and I'll talk more about that. We're working very heavily with the FDA. We're doing a lot of work with them and actually have excellent relationships with them. You'll see actually things are moving forward really, really rapidly. And then we also focus on clinician adoption because we need to have these devices available to patients and also to reimbursement. So at the core of the artificial pancreas project is the JDRF Artificial Pancreas Consortium. And these are clinician researchers, mathematicians and engineers, all working together and independently to develop algorithms to close the loop. As you can see here, they're located at incredibly stellar institutions. They're actually a who's who of artificial pancreas researchers. And we also have researchers in Australia and also in Europe. Now, many of our investigators are actually funded by the NIH as well. And this is really actually critical. You just heard about the special diabetes program and the funding there. A lot of the funding that goes to these artificial pancreas researchers is via SDP funds. So it's absolutely critical for you to get out there and promote and use your advocacy efforts to help renew these funds. Absolutely critical. So our investigators, what they're doing is they're trying to close the loop. Basically have the continuous glucose sensors speak to the insulin pumps. And how they do that? They do that through a control algorithm. They're writing the software that will close the loop. And how they're doing that, obviously the future artificial pancreas will look very different. It'll be a very small, excellent form factor and so on. But right now, to do this, they're actually using today's pumps and sensors. So for example, here are some pumps and sensors here. There's some pumps. And again, we have some sensors over here. And our investigators are trying to close the loop. And what they're doing is they're doing this primarily in an inpatient setting. So the sensor will sense blood glucose and send that information through the controller, through this laptop, to the pump, and then cause delivery of the insulin at the appropriate time, at the appropriate volume. And this is what it looks like. This is what happens in the inpatient setting. And you've heard a lot about this, the Artificial Pancreas Project, our clinical studies, and so on. What happens here? See, this individual is wearing pumps and sensors. Sensing, the CGMs are actually sending information to the laptop. The algorithms that are being tested, developed by our Artificial Pancreas Consortium members, then take that information and deliver the insulin at the right time. So this was the inpatient work. The challenge here, though, is that you really, to really test your algorithms and to get an artificial pancreas, you have to go outpatient. You can't test it in a hospital lying down in a bed because that's not what type 1 diabetes is. You're out and about, you're living your life, nothing should be stopping you. So the focus here then now is to actually do outpatient studies on these algorithms. And so this is the trend now, actually. We're actually now moving towards outpatient studies. So we still have the same pumps and sensors, or newer versions of those, because these are coming along. But now we are using more portable devices. And this is actually a cell phone-based system that is actually running the algorithm. And this is actually a person who's doing an artificial pancreas trial. This was in France, and he's having his device here. So he has his pump and sensor, and he has his cell phone. So we see the artificial pancreas development actually developing in iterative increases in automation. We're not waiting for the final, complete version that is fully closed loop, set it and forget it, because we're not there yet with the technology. We have to take this in stages. But actually, we're making tremendous progress, and I'll show you. The first stage. Here is the very low glucose insulin off pump. This is actually commercially available, and actually is made by Medtronic, and it's available in Europe and everywhere around the world except here in the States. Well, actually, Medtronic has actually filed a PMA here in the States, so we're actually seeing this. This will actually come quite quickly to the American market. But the idea behind this is it's a low glucose suspend. And look at this example here of this young lady who went to sleep at night. She wore her sensor, she wore her pump, and the pump delivered a basal level of insulin through the night. But then she became low. She became low, and the CGM alarmed. She didn't hear it. It alarmed again. It alarmed over and over again, and she did not hear the alarms, and she went into a seizure. Now, the idea behind the Medtronic Veil system is that once you cross a certain threshold, the insulin pump switches off for 2 hours. Prevention of hypoglycemia, prevention of seizures. And actually, we're seeing this in research actually that's coming out now in Europe. This is actually quite a valuable and useful tool for people to use to prevent hypoglycemia. We're funding some research in this in Australia to look at prevention of hypoglycemia unawareness. But since this is a product that's pretty much on the market, we're focusing actually on the later stages, the other stages in the artificial pancreas. And so as we move over from step 1 to step 2, this was a threshold shutoff. This is smarter shutoff. This is a predictive prevention. Algorithms that are smarter, that can look further into the future and see where you're going and prevent the hypo prevention. We're funding research in Australia in that, and also too in Colorado and in Sanford, and we're having some nice outpatient studies on that. Again, this is the predictive shutoff. Third stage. Third stage now is actually a hyper-minimizer, or a controlled range. The idea here being that you can be prevented from experiencing extreme highs and extreme lows. So a hypo-prevention and a hyper-prevention. You still need to bolus for meals, but you'll be protected from extreme lows. For example, when you go to sleep at night, the pump will switch off. If you become too high, the pump will switch on, or increase insulin delivery. So this is the hyper-minimizing approach. So we have these three top tier here, and then we're coming down onto 4 and 5, these set levels here. And here we have automated basal hybrid closed loop, and then fully automated closed loop. The goal here is, as I mentioned, we go from we're doing a controlled range to keep you within a safe target range. Our ultimate goal is to be able to narrow that range down to a target, right? And while we narrow that down to a target, also to eliminate the bolusing for meals. That's part of the strategy as well, and that's to come. The last stage here, and this is actually a lot of nice research actually going on in SANSUM and UCSB in California. They're actually developing nice algorithms that can actually account for have meal detection algorithms. So that's in the works. And also to step 6. And step 6 now is a fully automated multi-hormonal closed-loop system. And that would be, for example, incorporating things like, these are all insulin dosing, but now you could potentially have insulin and glucagon. So, the insulin is the, insulin lowers blood glucose, glucagon increases it. So if you have, let's say, for example, a dual chambered pump, you can actually have a little bit of insulin, a little bit of glucagon, back and forth, control you to a target. Or alternatively, you can have other hormones as well. We're funding a lot of work here to do this with Dr. Ed Damiano in Boston, and also to Dr. Ken Ward in Seattle. What I want to do is I want to actually focus primarily right now on the hyper minimizer, because this is where all the action is right now. And you may have heard about this. This is the outpatient trial that we actually launched. This was a tremendous amount of excitement because this is the first outpatient trial of an artificial pancreas system. And this happened in December of last year. And what we can see here, this is a study where actually it was launched in Padova, Italy, and Montpellier in France. And they used an Omnipod pump using this platform, this portable platform that you could actually walk around with, running the software, taking information from the Dexcom sensor. And this, again, is our chap here. This was the first person in France to actually wear this device and wear this artificial pancreas system. We also ran the same trial, the same pilot, the first enrollment in Italy. This lady here, and you can see she's actually now in a restaurant, going out for a walk, showing her platform there. At that time, we couldn't do this in the States. It was not possible because of the adverse regulatory environment. But what you heard just now was that JDRF advocacy actually helped push the FDA towards providing guidance here in the States for artificial pancreas research. We also, last year, we also convened a KOL panel to provide recommendations to the FDA. All this worked. And all this worked to the point that early this year, late last year, the FDA actually came out with guidance. And this was a tremendous advance. So much so that now we are actually running these studies here in the States. And right now, the last of this pilot, actually this week, is being run at Sanford. 5 patients right now are being run in the controlled range study over there. So this is really exciting, not just for control to range, but for the whole artificial pancreas field. Because this guidance will provide guidance not just for low glucose suspend, hyper minimizer, but also too for the later stages as well. And all of our investigators are actually gearing up now for outpatient trials. This is absolutely critical to fully test these algorithms so that you can actually bring them to market and have a commercial path. So it's the most exciting time for the artificial pancreas. So right now, the outpatient controlled range sites, Boris Kovachev and Mark Bouton at the University of Virginia. This is the site here that's actually got the 5 patients this week. This would represent the first pilot. There's a long way to go. They have more pilots to do, and then another trial later on next year. But the path is clear. Also, too, you've also heard about our JDRF partnership with Animus to develop a hyper minimizer. Well, this partnership is actually going to provide a device. So we're very excited there, and actually we just came back from the ADA recently, and you can see all these. I'm showing a lot of press releases because around ADA, lots of press releases come out. They just reported some really great data from their inpatient studies with their system. So looking back now, we have these different stages. We're breaking them down to the kind of 3 main groups. First generation artificial pancreas systems, second generation systems, and third generation systems. The first generation systems, we feel that we can develop and deliver these with today's technologies. So today's pumps, today's sensors, right? Which means that the existing CGMs, the existing CGM technology, and the existing pump technology can control you to a range, keep you protected from extreme highs and extreme lows. You still need to bolus for meals, but you're protected. When you sleep at night, you don't have to be afraid of hypoglycemia. The next level, though, second generation artificial pancreas systems. We need more technology there. to be able to control you to a target